open secret is that there is going to be a lot of things that are going to be able to be automated, not just in my industry, but any manufacturing industry.
Right.
Is if you really sit down and think about every single thing that happens in your facility, within 2 to 3 years, or even right now, but definitely within 2 to 3 years with how things are going, a lot of these things are going to be able to be automated. He's creating something that is essentially a ChatGPT for circuit design.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. Today I have Kevin Huo with me. He is a second generation manufacturer. His family company makes PCBAs, or printed circuit board assemblies. And Kevin has a lot of responsibility at the company there as the vice president, wears a lot of different hats, and has a really good insight on not only just the printed circuit board assembly manufacturing process, but just some of the difficulties that manufacturers are having today with navigating tariffs, with kind of generational knowledge gaps. And I'm really excited to pick your brain today, Kevin. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, Nate. I appreciate you having me. You got my name down right, nailed it. So,
Good.
yeah.
Which, yeah, as I was saying it, I was like, I almost thought I was gonna have a brain fart on it, but because it's not like with the way that we speak English, the way that it's spelled, you want to say it different ways. But good, glad I nailed it. Yeah, so you're Chinese. Your parents came directly from China. You were born in the U.S., is that right?
Yeah, so my parents came from China and they met in the States, and then I was born here in the Bay Area and born and raised in California.
Okay. Not a lot of I think Americans have like a very conceptual version of China in their minds, but I don't think we really understand too much about China in reality. And I've been reading a little bit on the subject recently, so it's kind of fascinating to just to hear like your perspective. Have you been back to China, or have you gone back with your parents?
I used to go a lot, like when I was growing up, probably like once every 2 to 3 years or something like that. But I haven't been back since probably 2018 or 19, so like pre-COVID. So
Okay.
I mean, your guess is as good as mine as if a lot of things have changed since then.
Right.
But I see what you mean, and what's funny is probably people living in China probably think the exact same thing about the United States. Like there's
Right.
probably just you never really know about something until you go there and experience it. So
Right.
there's probably like a huge disconnect about like what each country is actually about.
Right. Yeah, there's like this symbolic caricature in everybody's mind of what this people is like. What part of China did your parents originate in?
So my dad is from Beijing, the capital of
Okay.
China, and my mom is from around the Shanghai area. And yeah, so they came separately in about 1980, I want to say 85, something like that. Then they
Okay.
met here, and then I guess everything was history after that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We talk a lot about China these days and Chinese manufacturing. From my understanding, like one of the biggest challenges there is the one child policy since the, I don't know, 1970s, 1980s really impacted China's economic capacity moving forward. And I think a lot of Americans feel like China is a big economic threat to the US. But just kind of looking at that lack of young people coming into the workforce, I don't think that that's going to be the case moving forward. Do you agree with that?
It's kind of two ways of looking at it. It is one the one child policy did definitely affect kind of generations to come, as far as this generation that's currently working not having as many people. Like for example, both of my aunts and uncles who had children who are I think I want to say like 8 to 10 years older than me. They're both single kids, but now they're able to have children. But the thing is, and I think this is almost it's a huge problem in Asia actually for whatever reason is that people aren't having as many kids. They don't want to have kids, and they kind of want to just live their own life and things like that.
Yeah.
So
Even
that's going
now
to
that
affect
they
the
have the
workforce going
choice.
forward. Yeah, and that's kind of a problem going forward. And the generation right now also, there's a problem in China. Actually, you can look it up. I don't. There's a name for it in Chinese, and I can't really translate it perfectly. But there's like a whole generation of people who are like my age who just don't want to work. They just want to live at home, and they just they're good just living a very simple life. They don't really have that much ambition, and they just kind of want to relax and things like that. But um,
What do you think is
generally,
what's behind that? Like what do you think is driving that?
I think life is, from what I read, is just comfortable over there. Like there's if their parents are working, they're making enough money for them to live a certain type of lifestyle. Like why are they gonna go and try and make so much to live above that? Especially if they're of the mindset like I don't want to have kids. So it's not like they want to pass anything down or anything like that. So they're just playing a lot of video games, buying a lot of clothes and things like that. They're not doing much. I wish I knew the name for it. There's actually like a name for the phenomenon in China.
Let me
It's like a huge discussion.
so
It's called the the translation would be lying flat phenomenon.
hmm.
So the lying flat phenomenon in China refers to a trend where young adults, disillusioned with the hyper-competitive work culture and bleak job prospects, choose to reject societal pressures to overwork and overachieve. Instead, they opt for a more relaxed, minimal approach to life.
Interesting.
Sometimes even quitting jobs or becoming full-time children is what it says.
We call that failure to launch, I think, in the
Oh
US.
yeah, is that what that is? Okay, yeah.
There's actually a movie called Failure to Launch. It was a good movie. Um, but no, it's really concerning actually. And it's almost like a hopeless. It sounds like a hopelessness more than a comfort thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Mhm.
going to get better, so why bother trying? And like I in my mind, I guess the caricature of Asian culture is like make your family really proud, like go out there and do better than your parents did, and so it just seems like kind of a complete turnaround from that.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure what's causing it. It might be like a hopelessness. It might be more of like a mental thing as opposed to really like a societal or economic thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, culture's changing a huge amount. Like I can just, and I'm sure just like how there's some differences between how your mindset is and your parents' mindset, the parents before that. The differences between my mindset and my grandparents is like night and day. Like just as far as, how we were raised and, what our goals are and the struggles that we face and things like that. It's completely different just talking to my parents. Like, for example, even just like I'm running the company that they started, 17 years ago. And the differences in the problems that I face versus what they face are completely different.
hmm, yeah, and I think that part of it too is probably driven from the top. That I guess that sense of hopelessness in the government, the Chinese government, in Jinping, has created this extremely leveraged financial system where the country is really so badly in debt that I think probably a lot of young people kind of see um, these. From what I understand, there's these. Um, it's very, very easy to get loans if you're kind of in the right club. If you're in the right group, you can get loans to, run your business. But everyone else who isn't part of that insider group doesn't get that sort of funding. Does that sound accurate? That's what I was reading.
In China, that I actually couldn't tell you that much about. Um, it sounds correct though. I mean, it sounds China's it's very political up top. I mean, of course, when
Mhm.
you're kind of when it's kind of everything ran by one person, everything gets political because everything is
Right.
who do you know and do you have this guy's favor or do you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who can get something approved. So that doesn't surprise me, really.
Yeah. Huh. Well, at any rate, so tell me about the process of building PCBAs. Where do you guys get involved? Like what, where do you just get the kind of rough circuit boards and then start putting components on them? Do you do design work? Like, how does that all work?
So we're a full turnkey operation. So we source bare printed circuit boards for our customers, and then we do the assembly in house. So the equipment we have is to do the assembly. Printed circuit board manufacturing itself, the actual manufacturing of the bare boards, is a much different process actually, and
Yep.
it requires a lot of different chemicals and equipment and a completely different experience. So we kind of leave that to the people who've done that. That's something that we're not interested in getting involved in. Where we specialize is placing the parts on the board. So we have specialized equipment that allows us to do that. And where we get involved with the customer, usually the customer has a design. We can help them kind of tweak it for manufacturability. Sometimes things that are designed, in theory work out, but where for manufacturing, maybe you want this type of spacing, or you don't want it on, close to the edge of the board, or you don't want it close to something that would attract a lot of heat on the board. So you want to move it across the board from there. We can help with things like that, but generally the customer has a design, they give it to us, and then we confirm it. We get the bare boards manufactured by our partners, and then we do the assembly in house.
Okay. And what are the typical is there a typical application? Are they industrial products, aerospace, medical?
Yeah, the cool thing about printed circuit board assembly is that everything has printed circuit board assemblies in it. You can literally look around your room right now, like this laptop, obviously, my phone,
Yep.
scanner, even like the light bulbs above me.
Yep.
If they're smart controlled, they've got PCBAs in them. So we build boards for every industry. Probably the ones we build the most for are being in the Bay Area, like semiconductor, memory, medical, consumer electronics, things like that. So it's really cool because we see every single type of company and every single type of industry kind of walk through our doors, and each one of them kind of has like a different vibe, like a different feel, and it's interesting to see the differences between the industries and then the products that they're making.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's also, like everybody's seen a printed circuit board, and they've seen all the little components on there. I know maybe a little bit more than the average person, like a resistor, a capacitor, etc. But and I in an electrical engineering class, I learned a little bit about these circuits, but I was curious, like, when you look at a board, do you know what each one of those components does and what it's there
Oh,
for?
well, first of all, give yourself some credit. You took an electrical engineering class, so you're much further ahead than normal people, I would say. When you look at a normal board, there are some components that you can look at and say, like, okay, that's memory, that's a flash, okay, that's a controller, uh, you know, this is that, or this is that. But once a board gets to be a certain level of complexity, and we're talking about thousands of parts on a board, it becomes pretty hard to tell what exactly it's for.
Right.
But sometimes if you just know, because a lot of the form factors of the chips are the same, but sometimes if you know what the function of just one or two chips on the board is, you can kind of tell what the board is.
Have you seen any, so you've been with the company, what, like 8 years now?
8 years, yeah.
8 years? Over those 8 years, technology is from my perspective is increasing at a pretty rapid rate, pretty exponential. How have you seen the assemblies that you are making change over that time period? Has there been new components that you're like, what in the world is this? And you research it, it's like, holy cow, this is really interesting. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. There's always new and interesting components. Even, I mean, to hear my dad talk about it compared to 20, or I guess like 25 years ago when he started, compared to now, the chips are completely different. Back then, everything used to be kind of through hole, which was like these bulky parts that needed to be hand loaded and then soldered by hand for stability. but now everything's tiny. Everything we're talking about in like mills, like thousands of inches sizes. But the complexity of parts has definitely changed. You're seeing new kind of creative packaging as far as ways to get parts onto a board. Something that is you're seeing denser and denser parts. So as they get smaller, you need to compact all the functionality of the same chip into a smaller component.
Right.
So the component gets more complex and dense, which is not necessarily a problem per se. It's just when things are smaller, um, they have a tendency to go wrong a little bit more. But yeah, the main thing that we've been seeing is everyone is trying to build everything smaller. In the past, if something was on like a 5x7 board, you know, people are trying to shrink that to a 2x3, or they're trying to shrink it and they're trying to put it on a wearable or something like that. And so with things getting smaller, that's one thing. People want to condense their designs as much as possible. The other thing that we've seen a lot is people are really moving towards flexibility. They're trying to get flex boards, trying to get flexible circuits, and there's a lot of reasons you would do that. Mostly it is for things like wearables or things like you can open up your field of applications if your board is not rigid. So those are the kind of things we're seeing on top of. There are components that have kind of, I would say, developed over the years as far as being, for example, like previously the biggest ball grid array might have been, 1,024 balls. And every once in a while you come across a prototype project, a guy's got like 3,000 ball PGA that's already like $2,000 per part or something like that. And so people are always, especially when we see prototypes, people are always kind of pushing the boundaries of what is doable. But which is interesting because it's just like if this is what we're seeing kind of like currently on the market, like it makes me wonder like what is on the cutting edge of being developed.
Right. Yeah, that it is an interesting topic. And I kind of wonder, we chatted a little bit about this before, that guy that I met that it made the material that you can actually 3D print electrical circuits. And I almost wonder if like the future of that space is completely three-dimensional boards. You can put them in any plane. Instead of having like a flat board inside of a watch, the assembly is pretty much taking up the entire inside of the watch. Might be a more efficient use of space in some cases, I would think.
Yeah, I mean that's what when we talk about flexible technology, that's what we're talking about. So like clothing is a big thing. People are trying to essentially weave like a little tag into the clothes and things like that. You're seeing it a lot with like I'm a big sports guy, so like Nike and Gatorade are doing some really cool things with wearable trackers when athletes are going out into practice and things like that. There's a lot of stuff that they've got just as far as like that's flexible and then smaller and condensed so that you can put it on an athlete and it won't bother them while they're training or whatever it is, but then you can collect all this data. There's a lot of sensors on the board,
right?
And those are things that previously weren't really doable with the technology. I mean, imagine if you had like a let's just say like a ID card, like your driver's license size thing. It's just kind of taped on your thigh while you're trying to run. Like, yeah,
Right.
you could collect data, but it would be annoying for the athlete, right? So now that these things are so small that the athlete won't even notice them, or like for football specifically, they're going to put a chip in the ball, which is because it's so small now, it won't matter. But previously, there's no way they could have done it.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, yeah, and it's not even just the fact that it's small, but also the durability of it too. I mean, if you abuse a PCBA by throwing it around or spiking it, like that's typically not going to be a longevity inducing thing. So how do you guys compete in the marketplace? you're a relatively small company. I think you said 20 to 25 people there. There's some really big companies that you're competing against. How do you, acquire customers?
Yeah, for us, as a smaller company, what our mindset is one one as a family business, you do have like a very personal touch with your customers, and there are customers who really want that, especially in the prototype stage or in the small to mid-sized production. They're kind of looking for that one-on-one um, customer service and guidance and really a partnership as opposed to just a manufacturer who's just there to manufacture their product and doesn't necessarily care about the outcome of how things are going or um, it's not going to work with you to get through your troubles and things like that. So for us, what we really sell is especially we have two silos in our business. So one is the prototype side. We're talking about small batch builds. Things are often not finalized, and there might be things that go wrong here and there. For those, engineers really like to use us because we're flexible. We provide the service to try and help them get where they need to go. So if let's be honest, everyone makes mistakes, especially during the prototype phase. That's the reason they're called prototypes, is they're not perfect yet.
Right.
When engineers when things come up, unforeseen things come up during that stage, we really work with the customer to make sure that they get the result that they want. So if they've messed up a part or something like that, we don't hold it against them. We don't stop everything and say, okay, we can't do anything anymore. We really work our best with them to try to come up with a mutual solution that's beneficial to both of us. One that's not going to affect our manufacturing process too much, and one that's going to help them get the board that they want. Whether that means we're doing some kind of crazy rework or we're doing some kind of purchasing or something to get a cheaper price on something like that. Like we'll work with them because customers have a lot of different things that they're looking at as far as like what they would consider a successful project. On the other side, on the larger low to mid-size quantity size, well, number one, I should go ahead and say this: our quality is a given. Anyone who manufactures boards in the Bay Area, or manufactures anything, to be honest, and especially has been around for 17 years, your quality has to be good. That's the number one thing. It's almost a given if you've been around that long, because you can have the best pricing, you can have the best customer service, but if your quality isn't good, then no one's going to use you ultimately. So for us, we have fantastic quality. We have customers that my parents started working with in 2008, 2010 that we're still working with now. So our quality is really good. Our pricing is good, and then, like I said, just the customer service is where we really shine. We really want to work with our customers as partners and bring that kind of family business feel to their product, their boards.
Right. Yeah, and I can definitely see how you wouldn't necessarily get that from a bigger company. Um, so
Yeah,
for a lot of
sorry to interrupt.
no, you're
So
fine.
one other thing that I forgot. Yeah, so with bigger companies, there's also, there's something in our industry called quick turn. I'm sure that's manufacturing. That's a typical
Yep.
term. But
Yep.
quick turn manufacturing for us, um, a lot of larger companies, there's kind of like a lot of logistics, a lot of tape to go through just to get a project on the board. I've talked to people who are working with larger companies, and it's just a function of how they work. I'm not saying that, hey, they're bad because of this, but it could take them 3 to 4 days just to get a project quoted or just to get a project started, just because logistically they have their own processes that they need to go through. And 3 to 4 days for us in this industry, it's really valuable. 3 to 4 days, you can do a lot in 3 to 4 days, right? I could actually probably build an entire board in 3 to 4 days. So not having to go through those hoops, not having to go through that political tape or anything like that, it lets our customers get a leg up on their competition. Get to market faster, get to testing faster. If they don't have to kind of go through all that, if they want to just call me and say, "Hey, Kevin, I need to get this started tomorrow," I can do that, like no problem. Whereas
Yeah,
our
that's
larger
amazing.
company,
Yeah.
Yeah, in a larger company, it's just a function of how they are. The bureaucracy of it is, they need to get approval from someone who needs to get approval from someone who needs to get 3 quotes from somebody and stuff like that. So just getting to things quicker is a huge benefit.
Yeah. Hugely valuable. For a lot of companies, the prototyping, a lot of companies avoid prototyping simply because a lot of times it isn't profitable. It's a lot of work for a little reward. Um, and I guess and then for other companies, it's kind of like a loss leader. It's like, okay, we're using this as a strategy to get the production business. For you guys, is it really just a standalone product that, you make some good profit on, you're happy with that? And when it turns into production work, that's great, but it doesn't really matter. How do you kind of look at that?
Yeah, it's all those points are definitely valid. Prototypes is hard, especially again, like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty in prototypes. You never know if something's going to work, and then that could cause RMAs or returns, or you need to help a customer to do repairs and things like that. And those aren't things that really generate you much money. That being said, prototypes, it's something necessary to do. Everyone needs to do prototypes. And it's almost like, you want to develop these relationships with your customers so that when they get their prototype from their prototype phase to their production phase, which admittedly is a little bit easier and is probably a better margin. Sorry, not a better margin, but maybe you're going to make more money that way
Yep.
through
Higher volume.
higher volume. You want to have supported them through the prototypes.
Right.
You develop that trust, you develop that foundational base of knowledge and cooperation, so that you can work with them through that, and you really develop a partnership. So it's kind of unfair, I would say, in a way, to kind of just say like, oh, tell a customer, we don't want to work on your prototype. Come to us when you've got like the big money stuff.
Right.
Um, that's kind of an unfortunate way, and I understand that certainly that's some people's business models and things like that. But for us, where we're really trying to not just make money, but we're also trying to support customers. We love to see customers who really win. I would say, who really get to the next level that they're trying to get to. We love to see that. So we love to be a part of that. And
Hmm.
being a part of that means doing the prototype, doing the stuff that it can be a little dirty. It can be a little sometimes not the most fun, but we think it's necessary, and there's a lot of fun in doing these. Uh, it kind of sounds a little psychotic, but there's a little bit of fun in the madness, in the chaos of it all, of trying to get things done quickly, trying to get
Hmm.
things done, trying to do things that people come to us and say like, oh, such and such companies, I've taken it to a couple shops around the bay, they can't do it. Can we do this in 2 days? And trying to figure out how to do that and things like that.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of fun for that.
Yeah. No, it sounds like you guys are in a great like geographic location for your offering, having that super, super fast turnaround. Because Silicon Valley is what we think of when we think of like the highest tech, the fastest moving, the startups, these people that are creating these technological advances. From what I understand, there's also some new hubs that have really popped up. I think, like Austin, Texas, and um, some different places in the Southwest. Would you say you get 90% of your business from the Silicon Valley area, or are there some other areas you address?
Yeah, I would say probably 80 to 90% of our business is from the Silicon Valley, especially on the quick turn side. That's where, like you mentioned, we have a lot of geographical advantages by being where we are. We're in San Jose, like right by the airport, so
Yep.
that's close to a lot of the big players in Mountain View, Sunnyvale, San Mateo, things like that. So
Hmm.
you get the added benefit there of customers being able to drive down and discuss a project with you, or bring a board by for a quick rework, or drop off components that they got, consigned from their main company and things like that. So um, you gain a lot of advantages just by being there. So of course it's easy
Right.
to work with companies in the Bay Area. But the thing with printed circuit board is it is kind of you don't have to be next to someone to be able to build boards for them. Some of our our closest competitor. One of our closest customers is actually in Canada, in Ontario. We have customers who are like a little further out, like in Nevada, in Oregon, and things like that. So um, while the majority of our projects are in the Bay Area, we do see a decent amount of our work coming from outside of the Bay.
Okay. What's been your kind of marketing strategy, uh, especially when it comes to those companies that are outside of the area? How do you get in front of them?
Yeah, um, it it's just a labor. It's a labor of patience, basically. We're reaching out. From you do a trade show or you do some kind of email blast or something like that. You can get a lot of contacts. If you, for example, we do a trade show called PCB West. PCB West is, I want to say, probably maybe 200 exhibitors, something like that, every year. And they'll give you a list of the attendees, and from
Hmm.
that you can kind of go through it. You do the whole LinkedIn thing, and you see, all right, is this guy someone who can help me? Is this one? Because there's a lot of people who attend that are attending for different manufacturers, different industries, and not really helpful to you. So you can find these people, and then it's just direct reach out. Like, I don't really like to do like huge email campaigns and just email every single person that I could possibly get my hands on. Like, you probably get those advertisements that are like, hey, we can get you 5,000 contacts from your
Right,
professional
right,
industry
right.
for like $200, and then you just shoot off a mass email to all these people. That's kind
Yeah,
of not something we're really about. We really want to make these kind of more personalized connections. So we do a lot of like individual outreach, personalized outreach. um, Sometimes you read about a company or something like that. You hear about a company, you'll go on LinkedIn and you'll see, hey, can I, let's see if I can find the head of engineering or the head of procurement and try to have a conversation with them. And the reason why I say that it's kind of a labor of patience is, if you're in manufacturing, you already have a manufacturer. Like,
right. You
it's
already have a
impossible. You
supplier.
can't not have one, right?
Right,
Now the question is, are you happy with them?
right.
Or, because
You
if you're
don't.
happy with them, there's really no reason to entertain someone else.
Right,
Um, and it's with anything. If you're happy with your dentist, another dentist calls you, you're not really gonna give them that much time of day.
right.
Um, so it being a patience game is, you're just waiting essentially, and this is unfortunate,
For
but
sure.
you're essentially waiting for someone to screw up,
Right,
and you've just got to stay top of mind so that someone screws up, you can kind of slide in there and maybe solve whatever problem there is. Maybe it was a lead time situation, maybe it was a pricing situation,
yep.
maybe it was a customer service thing. But you've got to be there, just kind of top of mind and just waiting, essentially, to kind of pick up where the other person left off.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, I'm very, very familiar with that situation. In the way that I deal with it is, and I deal with it for my customers, is typically when somebody goes out on a web search looking for a new manufacturer, like you said, they're doing it because they had a problem, whether it be turnaround time, quality, on time delivery, whatever it might be. So then they go looking. When I do, so we do a process called search engine optimization for our customers, and the idea is that you have two choices. Either, yes, you can try to cold call and get in front of a bunch of people and develop relationships, and then at that future point in time when they have the problem, they think of you. Or what's a much easier lift is to just be visible when they go and do that search. Because there's going to be a pretty hefty percentage of those people that haven't had a you that they've developed that relationship with as kind of a fallback plan. There's going to be a lot of people that don't really have another contact, so they're going to look for it. So for you, I mean, that would be a huge advantage in terms of a growth strategy, is just getting in front of those searches, fast turnaround, PCBA,
Yeah.
those types of search terms. Somebody's looking for that. They get to your website and you're like, we can turn this around in 3 days for you. They're like, oh, wow. Okay, great. Let's do it. I think that would be a great strategy for you guys to think about too.
Yeah, for sure. What's your opinion on, or what would your strategy be? Because for us, there's a lot of competition in the Bay, and there's a lot of people with a lot of resources. I'm not a search engine optimization or Google AdWords expert or anything like that, but um, I imagine that it would be difficult to, let's say there's 30 printed circuit board assembly houses, and I'm
Yep.
probably the 26th. I've got the 26th highest spend on, search engine optimization or Google AdWords. Like, can I really be competitive as far as someone looking for my website?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I mean, I always kind of use these types of numbers too. So like let's say that you do have 30 competitors in the Bay Area. And then let's say that half of them like to advertise their fast turnaround capabilities. So now you have 15 competitors. Well, you have 10 spots on the first page of search results. And we all know that if you're not on the first page, you're nowhere. They did switch it to kind of that infinite scroll for a while, which didn't really change much anyways. But then they kind of switched back. So now you still have the 10 organic listings on that page. You have the paid ads, and then you have the listing. So you've got 15 people that are in the competition space of low or fast turnaround PCBA manufacturing. Okay, so then you look at their websites. How many people have a page that's developed on that topic? So you're making it very clear to Google that you want to rank for that term, and you have maybe 600-700 words of content on that page to talk about different aspects of that operation. So now, from my perspective, you're probably down to 7 competitors, because half of those people that are focusing on fast turnaround probably didn't put a whole lot of effort into building out that page. Let's say now you have 7 of them. Well, then you have 7 people with a well-developed page on the topic of PCBAs, and with that specific geographic focus. So like from a Google search term, that would turn into PCBA manufacturing, or fast turnaround PCBA manufacturing in Silicon Valley. So now Google is going to say, okay, which one of these 7 websites has the most credibility? And the way that they measure that credibility is through something called backlinks. Have you ever heard of that term before?
I think so, but I don't want to guess wrong.
Okay. So a backlink is just a link from another website that points to yours.
Right. Okay.
So when I'm an SEO guy, I know how to find good backlinks that are relevant to you. And so we want Google to see these backlinks because those are kind of votes of credibility for your website. Like, for example, if you're a member of the National Association of PCB Manufacturers, if I don't know that organization exists, but let's say it does. If you're a member of that organization and they link to your website, that would be a backlink. And so in Google's eyes, that's kind of a vote of credibility for your website, because they're saying, here's this credible organization over here, they're linking to you, so therefore you must mean something. So in most cases, if we can find 5 or 6 good backlinks like that, combine it with a really good page of content about the topic you want to rank for, there's a pretty good chance we're going to get you to the top of search results for that topic.
Okay.
So that's really what we do. We like organic SEO because there's also the concept of like, there are probably thousands of possible ways somebody could look for you. So they could be looking for an ISO 13485 certified PCBA manufacturer because they're in the medical space. Or maybe they're looking for an ISO 9001 certified, or maybe they're looking for precision, or there's thousands of different variations of keywords they could use. So that's kind of the next thing we do in SEO, is identify the next most relevant keyword for you and build a new page about that, while we're also building backlinks so that content is going to rank. And so over time, we see a really nice, a lot of times 200-300% increase in traffic year over year for customers, because we're building new content, we're building backlinks. And it's directly correlated to lead flow. I mean, the amount of leads you get is directly correlated to how many people are getting to your website.
Right, right, right. So you're kind of working on essentially a long tail theory, which is, you're not really going to be competitive as on the main things. Maybe as for like a smaller
Sometimes,
person like me.
sometimes,
Yeah, you're
yeah. And it
like
all depends
you
on
just put
backlinks. Yeah,
right, right. You said generating backlinks or creating backlinks,
creating.
but
And that's, I mean, that's
yeah,
another like misnomer in the space. And a lot of, you go on fiverr.com and like find somebody in India to backlink build for you. Well, the
yeah,
reality of it is Google cares more and more and more over time about the quality of that backlink. They really want to know that it's relevant to you and that the organization you're getting that link from means something. So a lot of times when you're hiring these people that are just generating backlinks, if you will, they've got these spammy blog networks that they'll give you a bunch of links from, but Google looks at them and they're like, no, this doesn't work. This doesn't count.
they can
It doesn't
tell.
add
Yeah,
credibility. But yeah, I mean, the short tail keywords are viable, but you're right, especially when you don't have a lot of like web authority or backlinks that they are very difficult to rank for. But we have a lot of customers that, globally, I've got a customer, for example, that does die casting, aluminum die casting. You can literally Google aluminum die casting anywhere in the world, and they're the number one search result, even other language variations. Um, so, those types of terms, you can rank for them if you build enough backlinks. So,
that makes sense. That's kind of interesting. It's kind of like almost an even playing field at that point because it's not like Google AdWords is like pure spend basically, right?
pure
So
spend, yeah. And that's why I
yeah,
hate it. I
so
mean, we do it and it does work. I specifically like to do it in cases where there isn't a ton of competition. So, like, for
mhm.
example, if you're a machine shop, well, there's 1,000 machine shops in any given state, right? Actually, in Pennsylvania, I think there's more than that. So there's always going to be a bigger machine shop that can spend more money than you. So it's just not even worth playing in that game. Whereas, I have a customer that does rubber molding, rubber injection molding, rubber compression molding. There's not that many of those guys out there. Like there's maybe 50 in the state, right? So at that point, your spend can go a lot further. And for a smaller budget, we can generate clicks. But I always prefer SEO because the cool thing about it is once you get ranked, you don't just go away. So you can move on to a new keyword and you don't really have to worry about that one anymore. And you build your traffic over time. And even if you were to just completely stop doing SEO work, you're still going to maintain ranking for a couple of years at least. So there's a lot of residual value to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks for the explanation. I kind of had bucketed Google AdWords and SEO kind of like in the same thing, but it sounds like they're actually significantly different, like
Yeah.
functionally very different.
Right. Yeah. The end result is the same, and the mechanism of the profile of the person that is getting to your website is the same, right? They're both somebody that had an immediate need. They Googled a term, they saw a listing, they clicked on it, got to your website. But the implementation of that is different. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, a lot of opportunity there. The one other question I wanted to ask you was relating to AI, the use of AI and robotics in your operation. From our previous conversation, it sounds like there is some of that robotic picking and placing of components. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So everything is essentially for pick and place. It's a machine that's programmed, and then the machine does all the work. So, I mean, you can imagine if there's 500 components per board, how long it would take for a human to place
Yeah.
those components. But
Yeah.
our machines, they're operating at 50, 60, 70,000 components per hour.
Yep.
So, you can do 1,000 components a board with 1,000 components, you can do 20 of them in like 10 minutes or something like that. If you
Mm-hmm.
really maximize the capability of your machine, and just even trying to fathom that as a human, it's impossible, right? So that's what it is with manufacturing. Is we're essentially trying to leverage these machines to increase our efficiency. And with AI coming into the fold, you're just going to be able to increase your efficiency even more. And you're going to be able to probably, there's going to be some ways going forward where, the programming that's currently done by hand or, with a lot of human help, can be mostly optimized just by AI. Especially with the way that AI is kind of formulaic, and some of the ways that, you're making programs as formulaic. You're just taking one set of data and converting it or applying it to some program, or changing it somehow, formatting it somehow so that it becomes readable by the machine or usable by the machine. There's really no reason that AI won't eventually be able to do that.
Right.
And it's kind of going to decrease the need for like engineering, which
Right.
is unfortunate. But I mean, that's kind of the open secret, is that there is going to be a lot of things that are going to be able to be automated, not just in my industry, but any manufacturing industry.
Right.
Is if you really sit down and think about every single thing that happens in your facility, within 2 to 3 years, or even right now, but definitely within 2 to 3 years, with how things are going, a lot of these things are going to be able to be automated.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can imagine too that it's probably being leveraged a lot in the actual design of the circuit board and the components that are needed. Like, here's the function that I need it to do. What components do I need on this board? Where I would assume that was in large part kind of a manual process for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting you said that, because I just had a conversation with my friend at a company called JITX. What they're doing is they're trying to make this design process very so previously you could pretty much only design a board if you had electrical engineering knowledge. You would have to know the components, the interaction of the components, what you need. You would need to, every circuit you would need to have basically gone to school for and to study and to have a ton of experience to be able to do it. What Duncan is trying to do at JITX is, when it's super interesting for me, because I don't actually have like an electrical engineering background, is he's creating something that is essentially a ChatGPT for circuit design. Is where
Wow.
you kind of spit
That's
in
cool.
what you want, and you just say, "Hey, I want to design a circuit that will allow me to, I don't know, snooze my alarm clock as soon as it wakes up, or whatever it is, right?" And it'll kind of spit out essentially a plan and a layout design for your board, and get you on track as far as what you want to do. It'll lay your board out, and theoretically, you'll be able to take that and go to a manufacturer like me and say, "Here's the product that I want to build." And so you don't really need any electrical engineering knowledge to be able to design a project that normally, you know, like you said, someone like you, no offense, you don't have any electrical engineering knowledge, you said, but if you had an idea for, you wanted to build something, theoretically, you wouldn't have to even hire somebody else. You could theoretically put your faith in this project or in this application, and it can spit out a project for you. And it's important then to have a manufacturer that you work with that will look through things and kind of double check, because let's be honest, like AI and things like that, it's still not perfect, but
Right.
it'll get you close enough to where you want to go. And for that to even be an option is pretty unique, I think. So he's working on something cool over there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, because you can see a future where, if you have a new product idea, I want to design a watch that tracks this data and gives me information about atmospheric weather conditions, whatever, and you say, I want it to have a cool, sleek design, whatever, give them specifications about the aesthetics of it, the function of it, etc., and then you just use your 3D printer and you make it.
Yeah, and it's gonna be crazy to the point where, you really just have to have ideas at a certain point. If you have an idea for something, there's a route to get it made, which is, I think, really cool, especially for people who 10 years ago, it's not a possibility. You can have a great idea, but you don't know where to go with it, and you don't have the funds, or you don't have the resources to be able to build it. But I think it's really cool that, like, 2 years from now, like you could be like a 16-year-old kid and just type something into some website, and then you can get off and running to really have a project or a product or something like that. I think it's really cool.
Right. Yeah, and what I also think like is once things get to that point where you can 3D print from home most things, you aren't gonna buy things online. You're gonna buy designs. You're gonna be able to buy the file for that thing and you know license it or whatever like that, and then you can make the product with your home printer.
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder if 3D printing will ever get to the point where it's so accessible to everybody that like everyone has a 3D printer, like everyone has a printer at home.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, right? Like, am I going to go out and buy, I don't know, Keurig cups or something like that if I know I can print them at home and then stuff them with coffee myself or whatever it is, right? Like,
Right.
um, if 3D printing, it's if 3D printing gets to the point where it's accessible for everyone at home and it's easy enough to just load some kind of design and print it yourself, there's going to be so many things that we spend money on now that we really don't need to be spending money on if you can just print it yourself.
Right. Yeah. It's fascinating. What a future we're in for, huh?
I know. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what's interesting is all these things now. Like in 5 years, you're gonna look at it and be like, wow, that really developed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't destroy ourselves first, right?
Oh yeah, that's a given. That's why I try not to look too much in the future. Like,
Yep.
what future? Yeah.
Well, I guess we have to have faith in humanity to improve as beings at the same time as we're improving technologically. Because that's the thing is if you get too technologically advanced without evolving as a species, spiritually, mentally, etc. Yeah, you're gonna be eliminating, killing yourself off.
Yeah, that's how we get like iRobot and
Yeah.
movies like that.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
probably learn from those somehow.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Kevin. Hey, thanks a lot for joining today. I think that was an awesome talk, and wish all the best of luck to you guys. And as you're kind of taking the helm of the company there, I hope that you're able to grow it way beyond even your parents' wildest dreams.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and thanks for the great conversation.